Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Magicbricks webinar series. Our endeavor to trigger a buy and bring back consumer confidence in the real estate market. We have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of real estate industry. The topic of today's session is determining the safety of the potential neighborhood. Our guest speaker today is Ms. Kalpana Viswanath. She's CEO and founder Safetipin. She's a researcher who has been working on issues of gender and safer cities for women over 20 years. She's a co-founder of Safetipin, a mobile app developed to support community and women's safety. She has worked as a consultant with UN Women and UN Habitat on issues of gender and urban safety on several projects around the world and has led research studies on violence against women in public spaces in the cities. Further, she has spearheaded the Safe Delhi for Women initiative led by Jagori, an NGO based in Delhi since 2005. She was the project director of Gender Inclusive City program with Women in Cities International, an international network on women and cities. She has also provided technical support to Safe City for Women program in Cambodia, Pakistan, Indonesia, Kerala, Mumbai and Kolkata. She is a safe city expert in an impact evaluation project being conducted by Social Development Direct supported by DFID. She is also a board member of the International Center for the Prevention of Crime and the chair of the International Advisory Committee of Women in Cities International. She is also on the advisory committee of the second State of Asian Cities brought out by UN Habitat and UN ISCAP and has been published widely in magazines and journals. She has co-edited a book on building gender inclusive cities. Our second guest today is E. Jayashree Kurup. She is the editorial head of content department in Magicbricks.com. She has been a business journalist for over 2 decades with Times of India, the Economic Times, and the Financial Express. She forayed into research in 2002. She is a regular guest columnist with a number of established media, including the Times of India group. We will start the session with a presentation. Over to you, Jayashree.
Thank you, Neha. Welcome everybody, and thank you, Kalpana, for joining us. The issue that we're picking up today is very, very critical, and we find that the property markets actually respond to the safety of the neighborhood. This includes how well the neighborhood is lit, how well it is policed, does it have nighttime security. These are very major issues, and I think Kalpana will be addressing them.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be part of this event today and to be able to share some of the work that we have been doing in India, in different cities around the country and globally. And I'm very thankful to Magicbricks for hosting me for a seminar like this, because I think this is really an important issue today in our cities about how safe are our neighborhoods and how do we build safer neighborhoods. So one is to look at what is the level of safety, but what can we in fact do if we want to have safer neighborhoods. Now, why is safety important? We know that crime has become a big issue in most of our cities today. At the same time, we do all feel very strongly that in our neighborhoods, in our colonies, in our residential areas, we should be able to move about safely. Children should be able to play without fear. Women should be able to move around, go to the market, go to work, senior citizens, and there should be public spaces for activity and entertainment. So on the one hand is the reality that crime is increasing and becoming more of a concern for people. On the other hand, we know that more and more people are moving to cities, more and more people are investing in homes for themselves, for their families, in order to build a better life for themselves. So in this scenario, we need to begin to discuss what is it about safety that we can take forward. Now, just to give you a sense of the kind of crimes in India, I'm not going to go through the numbers, you can just take a look at it, but we can see that crimes in India are quite high. crimes against property is more than 600,000 in the year 2014. So I think even senior citizens is a big issue. Crimes against women is certainly a big issue. Sexual offenses, public order. So we do have a situation today in India, in our cities, where criminal activities are taking place, where people are concerned about their safety, the safety of women, the safety of the elderly people, safety of children, because we keep reading, this is just the statistics. In fact, all you need to pick up the newspaper every day and you will get a sense of how unsafe in fact our cities are and why we need to in fact do something to make it safer, so that, because we know that urbanization is increasing. Every day hundreds of people are moving to the city from our rural areas. How do we build cities which are safer, which everyone feels they have a place in? So this is again just some idea about specifically on violence against women, because this is one of the areas I think that is a big concern for many of us in big cities today. Is how safe are we as women? How safe are our daughters? How safe are our sisters? How safe are our wives? How safe are women that we are, as women, how do we feel safe? And you will see that certain parts of the country have the dark orange, which is really the highest rate of crime per 1 lakh population. You will see very few places have a light beige color. So in fact, crime is growing and quite high, and violence against women is a genuine concern that many of us have today. When we move to cities, will we be able to move about comfortably? Will we be able to go back from work at night? Will our children be safe? And these are some of the concerns. Now the first thing is, when we talk about safety, is to build safe streets. How do we build streets that people feel safe in? You know, feel comfortable and are able to move around without fear. Now this picture is an interesting one. There is a small walk path, there is a kind of a fence around it, but on the other side is a very high wall, and there is no activity on the street. So if you just imagine if you had to walk down this kind of street in order to reach the gate of your house or your apartment building or your gated community after 8 o'clock at night, you would not feel comfortable, because you can see, first of all, there aren't too many street lights. There will be nobody in this area. So we need to begin to see that how do you make the streets that lead up to our home safe? It's not enough that just within the colony, within the residential apartment neighborhood it's safe. The areas around also need to be safe. One of the main factors that affect safety, which in our research in cities around India has shown, is good lighting. Good lighting makes good public spaces. This is a very self-evident, obvious one. So when you have a street like this, you feel comfortable moving about. When you have a dark street, you do not feel comfortable moving about. So one of the first recommendations that we can give to builders, but also to city planners, is make your spaces bright and well lit so that you can see when you move around. The second important principle is to have active streets. Now, what do we mean by active streets? If you look at this picture in front of you, you will find that the streets have activity in them. There are informal markets, there are restaurants, there are shops, there are buildings which have stairs and windows overlooking the streets. Now, when you're in a place like this, you tend to feel safe. You tend to want to use it. So the presence of people, the presence of positive activity on the streets, in fact encourages more people to want to use the streets, which in turn makes the streets safer. So we not only need to have infrastructure, but we need to build streets that people like using. If we look at all the great cities of the world, they have very active streets. And I think one of the things, in some parts of our country in India, in some of the cities, we have active streets. But very often we do not have active streets. The area inside your neighborhood may be fairly safe, but the moment you step out onto the street, it is not that safe anymore. And so therefore it is important to in fact begin to address not just the immediate area inside, but the area just outside the place, whether it's your neighborhood, whether it's your gated community, whether it's your apartment building, whether it's a group of flats, a cooperative society, whatever kind of public, or just a place of many houses which may or may not have a gate. So one of the things is to encourage public space usage. Now this picture that you see is from something called Rahagiri. Some of you may have heard of this concept of Rahagiri, which is a way, this is in Gurgaon, where on Sunday mornings from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., the streets are blocked for people to use. Now, of course, this cannot be done all the time, but the point is what happens is you encourage people to begin to use their streets for doing things. So we can have this in many parts of the city. Already there are over 10 cities in India which have this Rahagiri on Sunday mornings, where for at least 3-4 hours the city streets get blocked for people to use. And that is the important part, because very often our city streets are built only for cars to use. How do we in fact build city streets for people to use? The second thing is that when you have a housing neighborhood, a housing colony, when you have a residential place, when you have a gated complex, you want usable public spaces. It's not only the apartment that you're looking at, right? When you buy an apartment, when you buy a house, you're also looking for the places around it which can be used by you and by your family members. So public spaces is an important part of a residential complex. And I think that this is something that most of us are realizing, because we spend a lot of time within our residential spaces. How do we ensure that we also have entertainment there, we also have leisure spaces there, we also have spaces to do yoga, to walk around, to meet our friends, etc., for children to play and stuff like that. So really the point is, when you buy a home, you want to build, you want a home which has usable spaces in and around it. Now this is a picture of a residential neighborhood. The top picture is when it was just a street where cars would move around. The second is the moment you sort of pedestrianize some part of the street, make it a little more friendly to use without blocking necessarily access for cars also. Now the picture at the bottom is very much more friendly. You can see towards the back there are benches there for people to sit. So what happens is that you encourage people to use public spaces. Because really the principle of public spaces is that the more people use it, the more safe, the more inclusive, the more attractive, the more accessible it is for more people. So it can sometimes just take a very small change. If you look at these two pictures, it was just a matter of putting in a few tiles, putting in a few bushes, and putting in some greenery and a couple of chairs to make the area more friendly for people to use. If you lived in this neighborhood, would you not prefer a public space like what you're seeing in the lower picture, rather than the public space in the upper picture, which is just empty streets and a few cars parked in it? Security, of course, is a very important part, and most of our builders today, I mean, whether in places where the people have houses or apartments, have begun to address the concern of security. Now security can be of two types, as we can see from this picture. One is having physical security, men and women who actually guard our spaces, who ensure that we feel safe even in the night. The second is the picture is to have closed circuit television cameras in parts of the city, in parts of the place, the public spaces where it may be deserted, where people may not necessarily go all the time, so that you have a sense that you are being watched. So I think the other important aspect that most of us tend to look at when we look at a safety of a space is to look at what kind of security is being provided, how much security, at what times of the day is security being provided, how accessible is that security, how responsive is that security? So if I'm walking by a complex and I'm having a problem, how responsive is that security guard to my concern? Or does he or she think it is only their concern to guard the building and not be bothered about people walking by? So I think it's important that the security guard, while they're also guarding the building, they also have an eye on the street outside, so that if they are needed to intervene, they should be in a position to do so. They should be comfortable doing that.
Kalpana, if I can interrupt you for a minute. Kalpana, if I can interrupt you for a minute. We've got a very large number of queries coming in. So if we could, because I can see the number of queries are increasing now.
I have just about 4 or 5 slides. Maybe I should just finish it. It's not much longer.
Please go on. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So one, of course, is safe play areas for children. Most of us, when we buy a house, rent a house, an apartment, one of the first things we're looking for is safe areas for our children, whether it's in the park, whether it's in the street, who is watching over our children, etc. The second is, again, spaces for senior citizens. Areas where they can feel comfortable to sit, to walk around, to meet others, to socialize, to have a sense of community in their space. The other point is really safe mobility, that when you leave your apartment, it's not as if everybody has their own private transport. There are many people who need to have use public transport. So are there auto stands? Are there cycle rickshaws? Can you get a taxi nearby so that you can reach, or is there a bus stop? So I think this concept of last mile connectivity is the other important one that we should look at when we look at safety of neighborhoods. And finally, I want to just end by talking about Safetipin, which is a mobile app that we have designed, which gives information about safety in cities. So what it does is that you can do an audit, as you can see in this, which has 9 parameters. It's a crowdsourced app. It's a free app available on Google Play and the App Store. You can download the app, you can do an audit, and you can see all the data that is available. So as you can see in this picture, on the left, you see red, you see orange, and a few green pins. These are all safety audits that have been done in different parts of this part of the city. Red pins signify unsafe areas, green pins signify more safe areas. And the right side is based on this, we generate a safety score. And we have data now in about 10 cities in India. Most of our data is in the Delhi NCR area, but we are expanding to other cities, and we would like more and more people to use Safetipin to generate data, but to also use the data to take safer decisions about where they want to live, where they want to move around, where their offices are. So for example, if you are buying a house or renting a place, wouldn't it be really useful to have information about the safety of the neighborhood around that area so that you can take a more informed decision? And that's what Safetipin does. And thank you. That is my presentation for today. I'm happy to answer any questions that I'm able to.
Thanks, Kavita. Thanks, Kalpana. Let's go on to the questions immediately. Neha, would you like to take the first question? Ask the first question, please. Neha?
Arohi from Delhi. Jeshi, can you hear me? Jeshi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Arohi from Delhi, she's asking, what safety elements should my daughter check before renting a flat with her friends?
That's a great question, and that's really the kind of thing that we are doing at Safetipin, is really to say, what is it that makes a neighborhood safe? So of course, if your daughter is renting a flat, there are 2 things you look at. One is the flat itself. Who are the other people living in that building? What is the owner like? What is the level of security available in that area? Are there security guards and others? But you would also need to look at other things, especially when young women rent places, because they're often working or studying, they go out, they come back a little late at night, they have a social life, they need to move around, they may not have their own their own private transport. So what are the other things you would look at? You would look at to see, is this neighborhood a friendly neighborhood. And these are the, when I say friendly and safe, the parameters that you would look at are some of these. Is it well lit? Are there people on the streets? Is there security? Is there a good walk path? Is public transport close by? Can my daughter just step out of her house and within 2 minutes reach an auto? Now these are so that if she needs to go to the metro station, she can then reach the metro station and move around. So these are some of the, I think, key, this thing, lighting, security, closeness to public transport, and sort of a friendly area which has a park where there are elders walking around, children playing. So there's a sense of community in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Kalpana, there's a query that has come from Kamal Pathak of Gurgaon, who says that she's got two girls and both love playing around the corners of the society, and for their safety I need to know the security measures I should consider.
Well, you know, I think, of course, when you say talk about children playing, one of the issues that comes to concern is that it's cars, the movement of cars, right? Because often cars are not always wary of people playing. So I suppose which kind of areas you're looking at. The second thing is that, you know, in some of the pictures that I showed you, for example, if children are playing on the street and you have some benches where older people can sit, what they do is then they can monitor the play area. They can ensure that there is safety there. The third thing that can be done is, of course, security guards can also keep an eye on these play places. But in addition to security guards, I think when we live in a residential area, we would also like our community to look after ourselves. We don't want our guards to look after everything else. I'd like it when if my daughter goes to play in the park, that there are other people in the park, other mothers, other fathers, other elderly senior citizens who are sitting there who are also keeping an eye. So I think building that community feeling is a very important thing in terms of getting for children to be safe in public spaces.
Okay. We've got Monica Singh from Noida who says, I noticed in many new societies, when it becomes dark, it becomes uncomfortable for women to go out. How can this problem be addressed, and how can the project design help in any way?
That's a very good question, Monica, and I think the kind of factor that I've been talking about in this presentation today are precisely the things that would make you feel safe. Now, if you think, you know, in your mind, imagine a public space that you do feel safe in. For example, India Gate. Now, this is a public space that many people of us, even at 10 o'clock at night, would feel safe in it. Why is it safe? It is safe for a few reasons, okay? And I think that's why I come back to this slide, because this shows you some of the factors that we look at when we feel safe in a public space. So one is, of course, to have good lighting, not just inside the colony, but also outside the colony. There must be good lighting when you're reaching the place. When you're coming home, you should feel safe on the street. The second thing is that there should be this point of what I talk about visibility. This is an urban design principle known as natural surveillance or active streets. And if I go back to the slide on active streets, this one, sorry, you know, the one about making spaces, having this slide. Now, how do we build spaces that people feel that they can, in fact, use it safely? One of the most important things is to have activity on the street. So if you have, now I personally find that if there are some thela walas outside, you know, who are regular fruit vendors and fruit sellers and sabji sellers and the anda and bread wala in the pub, in my colony, I feel safer walking back because then the road is not deserted. So it's a challenge. What we need to do is to be able to have good infrastructure, but also ways that we have eyes on the street, whereby there are actually physically people who are watching the street.
Yeah. Sumit Lal from Bhopal says, are smoke detectors useful in homes as in offices?
Well, that's a little bit out of the purview of what I'm looking at, so I don't think I can answer that. Maybe Jayashree, you can.
Okay, actually, Sumit, it's like this. There are, like Kalpana said, there are many elements to safety. Now, go for the ones that have the highest impact. Of course, smoke detectors, if there's a fire, smoke detectors would be useful. But as a rule, what we have noticed, and I'm not an expert on this, but I'll tell you as a rule, what I've noticed is that while there are, fire sprinklers and all that, smoke detectors are more in areas where there is a large concentration of people in a small area. I haven't seen them in houses so far. So if you have to you have to choose between 10 different things, go for the ones that have maximum impact in homes. Let's go to the next query. This is Prachi Sharma from Gurgaon who says, what are the tips to buy CCTV cameras for my home? I'm a working woman who needs to take care of extra security of my home.
Again, I'm not the best person, but I think today there are many more kinds of CCTV cameras that you can purchase. I think I've looked online sometimes to see what are the kinds of what are the features of the CCTV cameras that can, how long can they take, how long do they keep the information for, what is the distance that it reaches. So I think some of these are the factors that you would look into when you're purchasing a CCTV camera.
Right. Prachi, I'd like to tell you one more thing. Recently there was a conference on safety of cities, and one of the things that came through is that actually cities can be made a lot more safe. And this goes for homes and neighborhoods also. There are a lot of cameras that are at play, okay? But what happens is that the traffic camera does not speak to the building camera, which does not speak to another street camera, and therefore though you have so many eyes that could have protected you, they don't seem to connect to a single grid. What the government of India, the government of Singapore, what increasingly is happening is the city managements are saying, if there are so many cameras, can we get them to all speak to each other so that ultimately there is a safety grid that protects the city. If that helps. And also, like Kalpana said, you'll have to check out, do your own research before you decide what is the best solution for your home. But there are many experts who are willing to help, and I think you should be looking for them. There's Mehek who says, I own a small commercial establishment in South Coimbatore. How important is it to have security cameras installed everywhere?
See, I think that, we need to do a mix of things. I think security cameras alone do not provide safety. And I think this is something that we need to constantly remember. One is who is watching the footage from a security camera, right? I mean, it's not constantly being watched. So I think as much as having security cameras, it is also important to make sure that the area around your commercial establishment is well lit, has got people, has public transport close by. These are other factors which actually make a space safe. So in fact, I mean, I don't know if we're looking towards a city where just the entire city will be monitored by CCTV cameras. Would you feel safer in a city like that? Or would you feel safer in a city like the picture here, where there are active streets, where there are people who are actually taking the effort to make their cities safer? So I think we need to do a balance between some amount of CCTV cameras and other principles of making cities and public spaces safer, which is active streets, lighting, public transport, people, etc.
Okay. There is Anchal who asks, how can building design help in addressing security issues so that women feel safe while going out at any hour of the day or night? Please advise.
Urban planning can play a very important role in the design of buildings, design of streets. There's increasing research nowadays which is showing that design and planning can in fact create better public spaces. So, I don't know if any of you have been to some parts of Gurgaon where, for example, the golf course road, which is a wide road, which has very little activity on either side of the road. So if you had to walk, while it's a very good road, I mean, it will eventually be a very good road in terms of cars to go, there is no space to walk. There is no footpath. There is very little lights on the street. So the thing is, you can design public spaces for people. what has happened is in many of our cities, we have started designing the road for the car user, not for the pedestrian. Now that is a problem. So I think design and urban planning and building design can make a difference in terms of safety. If you can have, for example, in a building, you have good lighting. You don't have those sharp corners where when you turn, you don't know who's on the other side. You can design buildings so that they, in fact, are safer for you to move around.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the one of the issues that we face is, I'll give you a small example. A lady took up a house in a certain area, thinking that it is close to the metro. Now, because she took that area close to the metro, she was sure that she's going to travel to and fro by public transport. However, what she didn't see was that at night, when she has to come back, there is a there's a group of youngsters who are hanging around there, and she feels unsafe. So what happened was she switched to private transport. Now that area is conducive to living using public transport because it's close to the metro line, but the roads are not quite so good. So she got stuck both ways. Now these are small things that you should consider. Look at that place any time of the day or night. Visit that place in different times of the evening so that you're able to assess if you're going to lease that house or you're going to buy that house, is it going to be safe for you at all times of the day? In the morning it might be perfectly safe, but in the evening when you come back from work and you have that 100 meters which is unsafe or unlit or something like that, you are going to face a problem. Right, Kalpana?
Absolutely, I completely agree. That's why I think safety is a very important factor in deciding the home that you want to buy or rent, because you're going to be there every day. You have to step out and step back in. So safety is a very central consideration that we have to look at.
Right. There's Meena from Gurgaon who says, how can developers ensure that the projects that are safe for women?
Again, the same principles. I really keep this thing, For example, if you look at phase 4 in Gurgaon, around that Galleria area, that is a very safe space because there is the DLF Club, there is the Hamilton Court, there is Galleria, there is Cross Point. There are people always walking those streets. You can always get an auto in that area. It is well lit. Now, the thing is, developers can build in such a way that you can have a community. So one is you have good green spaces. You have spaces for children to play. You have places for people to sit around and talk. You have places for vendors and shops so that they provide what we are known as active streets. Because when you have a market or when you have a vendor or a shop, when you walk past that shop, there is light. There is somebody inside there. You're not walking through a deserted road. Whereas that same road, after Galleria, if you go towards Huda city center, if you're from Gurgaon, it's completely pitch dark and there's absolutely nothing happening on the streets. So just looking at two parts of the city, one which you feel is safe and one which you feel is not safe, can give a pointer to builders to build not just beautiful houses, but to build active, safe communities where people can live in. Today, we don't only live inside our house. We live in our community. We live in our neighborhood. And we are creating neighborhoods. These are not old neighborhoods like what used to be earlier. Today, these buildings are brand new. And the idea, it's not enough to just have good infrastructure. We have to actually build ways that people will use it. So I think builders are another very important stakeholder who need to start addressing some of these issues.
Right. We've got Vandana who's saying, does the Safetipin app have a facility that connects automatically to the police like a GPS system?
The Safetipin app is not one of those apps where we are saying that you can call the police in an emergency. There are many other apps which do that. Safetipin really tries to, it's more working on prevention. It's trying to give information to people about safety and safe spaces. So, for example, in Delhi, the Delhi police has an app that connects you directly to the police. And I think that I would always say an app that is promoted by the Delhi police, they are much more answerable to that. They are not answerable to a private party. So Safetipin is more concerned about giving women decisions, data to make decisions. So one of the features that we have is that if you keep your app on and you enter a neighborhood which is unsafe, it immediately gives you an alert which says you are now entering an unsafe neighborhood. The score here is only 1 on 5. Would you like someone to stay with you? Because we have something called a stay with me feature, that is that you may not contact the police, but you can contact somebody in your list who can follow you on GPS. So suppose I'm coming back late at night, I can ask somebody to follow me through Safetipin to see that I'm going on the right track, to see that I am coming on the road to my home. So we provide a feature where there is a tracking element to this thing, but not an emergency element.
Yeah, and that is a very important point. What really happens is that you can't always determine what time you'll get home, but as long as there is somebody who's tracking your progress, you feel a lot safer, and in the event of something going wrong, that person can immediately alert say the traffic police or the authorities, so that action can be taken very fast. In fact, a lot of women do this, that I know do this. If you take a cab late in the evening, they keep on the phone talking to somebody, so that at least some there is someone tracking their progress. If not on GPS, at least they're talking to somebody. That's important.
And actually, what Safetipin Stay With Me feature is trying to imitate that. So very often, it's very difficult to go on talking to someone all the time. So that's why the Safetipin tracking feature doesn't mean you have to keep talking, but somebody can follow your progress anyways, even if you're not talking to them on the phone.
Sure. There's Saroj who's saying, hi, this is the first time I've heard about such an app through Magicbricks. I wanted to ask, how reliable is crowdsourced information?
That's a very good question. We have two sorts of information that we use for calculating the safety score of neighborhoods. Crowdsourced information is only one part of the data, because we, like you're asking, crowdsourced information can be patchy, can be sometimes unreliable also. So what we do is we supplement this crowdsourced data with what we have is we have an app whereby we take photographs of the city at night and use those photographs to in fact measure these exact same parameters of lighting and other things. And we have, for example, in Delhi, we've driven around 6,000 kilometers of the city, Delhi, Gurgaon, Noida, NCR area, and we have photographs of the city. So our data is quite reliable actually, so it's not just crowdsourced data. So crowdsourced data is one part of it, which is really to get citizens to get engaged and involved with it. So it's more like, do you agree with this area being safe or unsafe? You can just give your agreement or disagreement to that, which is what we're trying to get people, whether they actually agree with what we are saying is safe or unsafe. So we generally ask people to give their feeling, whereas the other parameters, that is lighting and security, we determine through these nighttime photographs that we take.
Yeah, okay. Anand says that there is a liquor vend near the place that they stay, and although there is metro connectivity and market is also just outside, but the nearby wine shops are distressful. Please suggest whether this would classify as a safe area, because there is activity, there is metro connectivity, but there is also a wine shop. How would you rate that?
Absolutely, and I think this is one issue that has come up very often, is the question of liquor vends. Where should liquor vends be placed in relation to residential neighborhoods, in relation to schools, in relation to bus stops? These are important points, because if you have a cigarette shop or a liquor vend right next to a bus stop, what happens is when you get off the bus, you then encounter elements that you don't necessarily make you feel safe. So I think that this area, the fact of having a liquor vend compromises the safety of that area, So I think this is something we need to see where liquor vend. We can't say there should be no liquor vends, but where in the city should we be placed? They shouldn't be placed very close to schools either. That's another big safety concern that is often there. And they certainly should not be right next to public transport hubs, because public transport hubs are crowded. You don't want those kind of places which tend to attract or get a, what happens is groups of men get together and drink, and that space becomes unsafe then for women and even for men to walk by.
Yeah. There is Kanchan who's saying, I have a question for you. Does a non-lit up street impact the value of a property? Would you like to take that?
From my perspective, I say it should, but I think Magicbricks is better equipped to answer that question.
Yeah, actually, Kanchan, all these issues that Kalpana has picked up, each one of them impacts the value of a property. If you must have noticed that when a neighborhood gets together and acts like a community, they clean up the sidewalks, they make the footpaths safe for people to walk on. They make sure that there is a certain speed limit under which you have to drive. They make sure that all the street lights are working. These are all elements. Everything that Kalpana has picked up, these are all elements that add to the safety of a locality. It reflects in the first the rental values that you get. Any locality that is deemed safe, according to this, we find that there is a high occupancy there, and there is also high demand for those properties. The values will also certainly reflect the safety of that locality. So safety plays a very, very large role in the value of properties. Let's go on to Mrinal's question. Mrinal says, are there any organizations or NGOs which can help women living as tenants? There has been instances where tenants have been harassed. Would Safetipin consider that as well?
Well, Safetipin is not that organization, but there are organizations. So there is an organization called Jaguri, which is based in Delhi, which has a unit which looks after, if you have cases of problems of harassment, you can go to them, and they have a whole team which works with you in terms of support, giving you options, helping you go to the police, helping you find lawyers, whatever it is. And like that, there are other organizations in cities around the country.
Okay. There is, we've got a very interesting question. There's this girl called Arushi, who's a student of North Campus Delhi University, and she's saying, according to Safetipin, could you suggest some of the names of safe localities which can be considered?
I would advise you to just download Safetipin and look yourself, because it's an open app, it's a free app. Everybody can see the data. It's not we don't own the data. So if you download Safetipin, you go to just move the cursor around and go to the different neighborhoods. You can see which neighborhood is safer and which is less safe. We also have a little map in Safetipin. If you look under the city maps, which shows you on the basis of color which colonies are green, which colonies are orange, and which colonies are red. So all the data is available for you on Safetipin. And I mention again and again, the idea is to give information you to make safer decisions about your life. Because we believe that women have the right, families should have the right to safety and ability to use the city, and we are just a tool that helps you with data and information.
Right. We've got Ahmed who says, what are the ways in which Magicbricks portal details out the safety aspect of a particular property? Ahmed, you know, the reason why we got in touch with Safetipin was because we have been, Magicbricks in a very large exercise around the country, about 28 corridors, which we consider are very, very high intensity buying happening in these corridors. These are largely transport corridors along which a lot of development has happened. And when we started looking at them, we felt that there were some localities which were relatively safer. Some aspects, the safety aspect had been considered better. So what we did was we started checking out the details of the locality, what are the features that are there, how many cameras are there, and like Kalpana mentioned, are there eyes on the street so that that neighborhood can be safe. That's when we came across Safetipin, and we figured that a lot of people seem to be giving their responses to Safetipin, and that crowdsourced information was being used by others. Therefore, what I would suggest is that there are two types of safety features. One is the technical safety, which means fire safety. Are the lifts in good maintenance? Are there enough lighting? Is there enough lighting within the neighborhood, and so on? The other thing is the grid that Kalpana has made. These are all elements not only within your own colony, but outside. Once you step out of the gate, when you go to the metro station, when you go to the bus stop, when you're going for a stroll, when you're meeting somebody, if somebody is visiting you, is that locality safe for that person? So property safety and neighborhood safety are two different things. One dovetails into the other, but you have to check both. And as a fairly responsible property portal, what we are trying to do is make more and more information available to you so that you can make informed decisions. There's VK Garg from Jaipur who says, what are the modern technologies that can keep us, help to keep us safe in our households? I think that's a very broad question, but if you would like to take it.
Well, I mean, in our households is different, it's this thing, but I think modern technologies, certainly CCTV cameras, apps is a big one, you know, like Safetipin, there are other apps. The apps are there to keep us safe, to give us information, to have different ways of using a technology to this thing. So I think, you know, but at the same time, I would like to say that technology plays only one part. The other part of safety is always people, you know, and I think that is something that we have to recognize, that having people is what makes a city safe, not having infinite numbers of CCTV cameras. I mean, that is my strong belief.
In fact, if you look at a city like Singapore, the Singapore government has now embarked on a plan since last year to create communities. So it's not enough to have lots of people come, step out in the morning, come back late evening, and not know who stays next to you. They want people to link with each other, and the government is encouraging, spending a lot of effort and money, creating local events where people come together, so that ultimately these eyes on the street, they should also be taught to notice. If somebody is in trouble, if somebody is in distress, if your neighbor is in distress, would you respond to it or say that, I'm not sure, I don't know that person very well? These are important things. And community living is something that is being encouraged around the world as a solution to all the kind of urban safety issues that we have these days.
Absolutely. For example, in most of our neighborhoods in India, we still have a mix of people. We have older people who walk around, who sit in the neighborhood. They are our eyes on the street. They are the ones who look after our children. We are going after work and we often come back late. So we have to cultivate that sense of community and neighborhood and trusting each other and turning to each other for help. And I think that, to me, and very often, I don't know, I mean, like in gated communities, you can build that kind of community. And I think that's important. I think this idea of what you talked about Singapore is a very interesting example. It's extremely interesting that the government has recognized that this is important.
Yeah, you know, the government could have put 10 more cameras, but at the end of the day, it's the eyes on the street that keep you safe. Couldn't emphasize that more. And this is what most governments around the world, local governments, are feeling. We are on to our last two questions, where we've got Ishan, who says these days people are moving towards NCR for space. Basically, you're moving to the periphery of the city. And there are others who would like to stay in a society which is not close to the hustle bustle of the city. In this case, a lit up street or a guarded gate, are they enough when you move into the periphery of the city?
See, when you move to the periphery of the city, often one of the casualties is really active streets. Because, you know, for example, in Gurgaon, if you go to sector 92 and 94 or Greater Noida, there are all areas which are now opening up. I think, see, certainly having security guards and lighting is one element. So it certainly makes you safer than if, for example, if there are no lighting. But slowly, it will certainly not be as safe as a little more bustling neighborhood. So I think that is an important point to keep in mind. And so often people who move very far tend to have their own private transport and not really depend on public transport. But then also, can your children go out and play? Because you may have private transport, but your daughter and son may need to take the metro or the bus to go to college or to their workspace or whatever. So I think eventually, you know, even these far off places, slowly they will also begin to have more life. But initially, I think there is some effect on safety and security that you feel if you are in a slightly far-flung area.
And you have to modify your lifestyle according to that. If you lived in the city center and you used to party till 2 in the morning and come home because you had only a 15-minute ride through a very well-lit and well-used street, if you're in the periphery, you actually have to think 2 times before you get out. Saying that I have been out on the street at 2 in the morning when I was in city center does not justify doing that in the periphery. This is the harsh truth, while one wouldn't like to hold up people's lifestyles. But if you move into the periphery, you have to spend more on your safety than otherwise. Anjali asks, what are the grassroots initiatives for women's safety? Would you like to take that, Kalpana?
Sure, there are many initiatives. There are many groups around the city who are working on issues of women's safety. These include things like one of the very important things of working in schools, working with boys and girls, because very often when we talk about women's safety, we think we only have to work with women and girls. But in fact, we need to work with men and boys also, so that the problem gets addressed. The other is to really do campaigns on the ground, to create awareness about it, that this is an issue that you need to, what are the kind of things you can do. Secondly, you can have online campaigns where women talk about their experiences of unsafety. They get a community of people who listen to them, who understand them. They can understand what other women are going through. So I think campaigns, working in schools, working with young men, working in communities, for example, in our lower income neighborhoods, how do we make these spaces safer for young men and young women there also? How do we provide activities for them? So I think it has to be a holistic kind of perspective. I think it's very good if the government would do a widespread campaign on saying that we believe women's safety is a central issue and we will work on it, not just work on it as a peripheral issue. So, I think at the grassroots we need to work really with young people. We need to mold our minds. We need to create young boys who will become young men who respect women, because really the problem is that, right, at the end of the day, it is the mindset, it is the fact that men have sexually harassing women. How do we make that particular issue safer in terms of this thing, working with, making a community which respects women much more?
Absolutely. And also children. I mean, children are very, very vulnerable.
Yeah, boys and girls, yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming and joining us on this talk, Kalpana. It was very, very interesting. And going by the volume of questioning, we have touched a nerve with our consumers. Back to you, Neha.
Thank you. Thank you, Jayashree. Thank you, Kalpana. It was a very insightful presentation as well. I thank both of you for conducting this webinar. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of the webinar will be available on Magicbricks by tomorrow. This is Neha Nagpal, the moderator of the session, signing off. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.